Yeah, so we'll try to see both sides, and if we are good enough, we'll try to find a way to see work differently than of this differentiation between paid and unpaid, because that's a way to say there is a GDP and there is something else hidden by the GDP, but this means that you see things through GDP, even if you see beyond, mainly around GDP. So we want to get rid of that and to see things differently, with the part that is paid, the part that is not paid, and to reorganize the way we see the economy and work a bit differently. Yeah, so the main idea is to try to see the continuities between things that are paid and unpaid, and try to see them together instead of using this separation, even if it won't disappear completely.
Okay, to begin, I wanted to start with research that we made with Maud Simonet, Giulia Mensitieri, and Eve Moretti-Comfort. I didn't put the name on the PowerPoint. It's a research we made about the masks who were produced during the pandemic, because in France, when there was a pandemic, we talked a lot about the essential work and the role of women who are caring of child and people and all these things. Women who are not paid because there is a dequalification, but we will talk about this too just after. But we didn't speak a lot about women who did a lot of masks in their house and in various places that the municipalities, for example, give to sew these masks, because we didn't have masks, and it was a big problem because all the industry were in other countries, and as you can remember, we didn't have the possibility to import a lot of masks. And it's not. This case is not only the case during this pandemic. It's a case. There is a lot of case in history. During there is a woman who are mobilized to work and to do unpaid work and free labor. There was a case during the First World, for example, in France, and it was the same case because in France, Macron, the president Macron, was saying we are on war against the virus, and we are on war, and it's a big crisis, and we have to find solutions. And it was the beginning of the investigation because of the principle of the investigation. It was seamstresses, women who are doing with this job as a job, a paid job as seamstresses, and these seamstresses. The people are waiting for the seamstresses to do masks, but for free. And it was a big problem for them because it's their job and they have money with this job. And there was a collective which called Ballet Masque, with a lot of seamstresses, a who are trying to organize to say that it's a job and it's not a non-paid job, and that we have to pay them to do that. And we work about a lot of configuration, but I just will talk about one configuration, which was a configuration of the Lille, which is a city in the north of the France, where there was this, how do you say, etiquette, with the mix of the productive organization in the etiquette. There was the CHU, which is the hospital. There was le Garidou, which is the name of the mask. And there was the fact that it was doing by bénévoles, free labor workers, and with the company, which is Le Maillot, which is a private company. And just this etiquette, label, okay. This label, in this label, we can see the mix of productive organization, and there was talking about the idea that they did the biggest factory in the few hours with a lot of women who did the free job, because there were 5,000 women, I think, and there was in the company there was a production of kits of all the things that you need to do the mask, and there was a man from another company who was doing the transport of the kits to the women houses. Then they had to do the mask for free, and after that the man was taking the masks to go to the CHU to give the mask to the hospital personnel, and they are saying, and it's how I can say this, it was a big fierté, big pride, or point of pride to say that they did the biggest factory in just 48 hours. And I think it's good to understand what is the idea of reproductive work, because it was the same idea as the idea of the feminist from the 1970s. They were saying that it's not love, it's unpaid work, to speak about the domestic work that they are doing in their family. And now we can say it's not solidarity, it's unpaid work, because the idea from the President Macron and all other people was to say we have to do this, it's for solidarity, we are on war, and it's important to do that, and all these things. And there was a lot of women who were doing this with her heart too, because it was really important for them to be in solidarity with all the people against the virus. But there is a lot of kind of denial of work like that, love, solidarity. We can speak about formation, we can speak about vocation, all the things that we are using to not speak about work. And this is to justify the this is to justify, yes, the idea of disqualification, and that we can explain with the naturalization of the skills, the idea that you are doing this because you are a mother, and you can care about other people because you are a mother, and you can do these things because you learn to do that when you were young, and you know how to sew, and it's not qualification, it's a natural thing, and it's the way we can justify this kind of unpaid free labor or disqualified labor. Okay, I will now explain more what is reproductive work and how I can use that concept. Okay. And I use reproductive work as a concept to explain how you are reproducing the workforce. It's a Marxist concept, but we will not talk about this talk this morning too. But just we will explain various things, but not all. But it's the idea that we are talking about what is the work that you need to reproduce the workforce, and how you are doing to go to work tomorrow and to reproduce tomorrow and from a generation to the other generation. And the reproductive work can be paid or not. And I think it's really important. It's the idea, the fundamental idea is that reproductive work is not only domestic work. It's not only the work that you are doing in your house. And what is important is the function of this work. And this work, the function is to reproduce the workforce tomorrow and from a generation to other generation. And it includes the domestic work, but not only, and it can be there is a reproductive work in the public services and private companies, and also in association, for example. There is a big extension of what is necessary to reproduce the workforce. It can be on education, childcare, healthcare, emotional labor too. It's a part of the reproductive work, and domestic work too, but reproductive work in general. And what is important is that the reproductive work is disqualified as seamstresses. There is a continuum between the domestic work, which is disqualified because it's a free work and unpaid work, as a mother, for example, as a wife, for example, and what you are doing in the professional area. There is a continuum between the two places in reality, and we have to think the professional and domestic work together to understand how the society can be fonctionner. Work. Okay. Okay.
Thanks. Yes, so that's the way we propose to see the economy with different glasses, not through money but through work, and in particular differentiating work that is reproductive and work that is not reproductive. We'll focus mainly on the reproductive one. Okay, we have a very specific joint seminar today. Is it the first one for you?
Yes.
Yes. So you're not aware it's specific, but later on you will see it's different, because we have a lecture this morning and the following weeks on a very close topic. So sorry for those that were here this morning. We try not to repeat, but to go further. And sorry for those that were not here this morning, and we'll have to catch up. The idea here is that there are many authors, many feminist authors speaking about labor that is not standard labor, wage labor, and within them we are specifically interested in the Marxist feminist approach, and we stress here for a few minutes the idea that there are approaches, there are many now, but different ways from a Marxist feminist perspective to see reproductive labor. Okay, so that's where we try to be a bit precise and produce a definition, a concept of reproductive work that is as precise and useful as possible. The discussion starts in the 70s. The idea is that, in this view, women's work, domestic work, reproductive work is a part of capitalism, a necessary, essential part of capitalism. And that it's linked very strongly, repeatedly, every day, in generation after generation, with wage work. It's just like a step within the process of capital accumulation. Mainly the domestic reproductive labor, this unwaged part. And this is stressed by what we call with Susan Ferguson, autonomous Marxist feminists, who came mainly from Italia and within the Marxists from Italy and Torino in particular, with this idea that capitalism, after the 60s, 70s of the last century, get beyond the factory and use more and more activities and works that people do outside of the job of the wage work. And for those authors, the reproductive work, in particular the housework, is producing value indirectly through the labor force, the workforce. To say it concretely, a woman at house make everything that is needed for the man to go to work in the factory and get paid. So actually the wage is the way the owner of the company buy the labor power of the man coming to work, but also the labor power of the people, the woman, the wife that's been producing the capacity of the man to work. Here I try to be just a little bit more concrete to try to explain what we are talking about. The first idea that comes to mind is that it's like a commodity. Labor power or workforce is like a commodity, something you buy on the market, and it's produced elsewhere. And the family being like a corporation, a small corporation. Here, I think it's important to see that it's not only the fact that you produce food for the husband to be able to work next day because he ate something and didn't die. It's not only that you dress him and you go to buy groceries so you will be able to cook that later and so on. It's mainly that you free him, you free time for him to go to work that he could not have if he had to take in charge all the housework that the wife did for him. So it's both practical activities, but it's also an organization of work that's free time for the waged worker to go to work for long hours, a lot of days in the week. So the conclusion of this approach is a very large international campaign for a wage for housework, stressing that actually housework is producing value, is participating to the economy, to the growth of capital, but it's unpaid, or at least not completely paid through the wage of the husband, and we demand, feminists demand, a wage for the other part of the work. Okay, so here we have this differentiation between actually paid wage work and unpaid housework, and the demand to pay both, actually. The other approach proposed by Liz Vogel and other authors, again, very close to the first one, it's not a strong proposition, it's the idea that reproductive work is not mainly, or it is not only housework, and this differentiation should be left behind, or at least in part, to focus on reproductive work in a more general way, as Fanny defined just before. Different forms of work, sometimes paid, sometimes unpaid, but that together do the same thing. The fact that people are available to work every day and generation after generation. And the main difference, or the main critique to the autonomous Marxist group, is the discussion about abstraction, to put it in Marxist terms. The idea that what is important is how socially work is organized and what kind of institutions we give to the work. And there are various possibilities for reproductive work. Again, public services, private corporations, unpaid housework, or associations or other things, non-for-profit organizations. And these different forms of abstractions, these different forms of socialization, more or less large of the work, are what determine the fact that they are paid or unpaid. And if you want wage for housework, why not? The idea is it's not that it's already producing value or not. That depends on how you socially organize it, how you abstract it. So the demand for wage should be a demand for an institutionalization, an organization of housework, for it to be paid because it produces value, because it is organized in a way to produce value. Okay? I'm not sure if it's very clear, but that's what I wanted to try to stress here. And one simple way maybe to grasp it, to catch it, it's the idea that you need to make it commensurable with other works for it to be expressed in money, which is a common unit to compare quantitatively things that are qualitatively made equal by some process of abstraction. Usually we think of the market, but there are many others, just a few others, that make commensurable work in different areas, even without getting through the market. So that makes maybe a bit, that gives steps or mediations to the demand of wage. That's a question, or yes?
Yes, I don't know if now is also time for question or only later.
For a quick clarification, yes. If it's a longer question, no.
Maybe later.
Okay, so it's very clear, but it invites debates, that's perfect. Okay.
And the name of this Marxist feminist schools is now the name is the social reproduction theory, and it's a retroactive name in reality because it wasn't a theory with unificated before, and it's during the 2010s that there was the kind of unification in the social reproduction theory. I will not explain all the book who are talking about this, but there is, for example, the Viewpoint magazine, where there is a trying to do the genealogy of the social reproduction theory with a lot of articles that you can find on the web if you want. But there is other book, other text, and now there is a kind of effervescences, I don't know, a boom, a boom. There is a lot of texts which are speaking about the social reproduction theory, and I think what is important is that this theory. There is a kind of boom because there is a new feminist dynamic in the world and a new feminist contestation with a lot of reflection about this, and there is an articulation between this theory and other theories too, because this theory can include a lot of variation and all these things, but we can have there is a link really strong with the feminist contestation in the world, and it's sure. And for example, Silvia Federici, the text, there is a lot of translation of the text during in the 2010s, but she wrote this text in the 1970s or 1980s. And for example, Lise Vogel, I will talk about Lise Vogel. His book was a book from 1983. The book was Marxism and the Women Oppression, and she is a part of the social reproduction theory, but she was a great added just after at the social reproduction theory. And what is important in the Lise Vogel approach is the idea of the unitary approach, an approach who wants to think gender, class and race together within capitalism. And she is trying to avoid both the hierarchy of the oppression and their fragmentation. And it's the objective in this book, and she showed the big contradiction of capitalism. It depends on social reproduction, but it has to reduce the cost of this. It's a big contradiction of capitalism. I think that you know that. But and she is talking about the idea of the crisis of social reproduction with the neoliberalism, because with neoliberalism there's a new organization of the market produce the reduction of the, for example, public services and the increase of precarity and all these things who can reduce the possibility of the reproduction of the workforce in reality. And she is not, there is Lise Vogel who is talking about this, and there is Nancy Fraser too, which is talking about the crisis of social reproduction. And we are now in this, always in this period in reality. And and for example, I did an interview last week about the mobilization in France. I think that the dynamic from Bloc on Tout was a dynamic which is a revelation about this crisis of social reproduction, because people don't have enough money to live, and there is and there was in the demonstration there was this idea, and the idea of the school and the hospital and all the services of the social reproduction who are in crisis now, and I think that this movement is a reflect of this crisis of social reproduction. And this produces class inequality, and because of the idea that there is a few women who are doing work like a man in the organization of work, a few, and the majority of the women who are working with difficulties and precarity and flexibility and all these things. And there is also a global south impact of this crisis of social reproduction, with the basic subsistence, which is the privatization of the common produce difficulties in the basic subsistence, and all the politics of austerity and all these things. Okay, it was just to explain a little the context and the regard that we have to understand capitalism, and I will now explain a little what I did. Research and history that I made, and I am talking about this idea of reproductive work, and I have this idea of crisis of social reproduction as a background on the book, because I am talking about the mobilization of popular class, women from popular class, until 1945, since 1945 until now. And it's important to speak about the genealogy of these projects, of this book, because I think that we can understand the objective of the book when we are talking about this genealogy. I was when there were the Yellow West mobilization. I don't know if you know about this a little. And there was a lot of people of popular class who were on mobilization in 2018. At the end of the year, because they couldn't pay the more tax, and it was a spontaneous mobilization, and there was a lot of women in this mobilization, women who are not organized in union, women who are alone with their child. And there was a woman who was talking about the impossibility to have money for Christmas, for example, and the impossibility to go to the end of the month. And I was writing about the mobilization of women from the working class during this contestation, and about the fact that it's not new that women are on the mobilization, and because they have this function in the popular family to have the budget in their head, and to think how to close the months, to go to the end of the month with the money that they have. It's not a new thing in reality. And I did a little history at the beginning, and a bigger and bigger history of that, with a lot of contestation in the French history. And after that, there was COVID and the idea of essential work, and I was talking about the idea to change the priority and all these things, and there was a mobilization to according a new value of the work of women who are working in this essential work. And the third thing was the perspective of the feminist strike, because I am a feminist, and I am inside this process in France. I am trying to do something about this as a syndicalist too. And I think it's important to speak about this because it's an epistemologic question, and I will talk about this just after. But I did an academic work. This is an academic work. In France, we have, after the PhD, we have a thing which called the HDR.
Direct PhD research.
Yes, it was to be able to supervise PhD from others. I have to do something else. We have to do something else, and I decided to go to see original sources to do my work. I just will speak about a few things because I can't explain all the things, but I just wanted to speak about the epistemologic question because. Okay, I decided to do a feminist history. I know that it's the question that you have, I think, about the epistemology question and how can we do economy and all those things. In France, it's not easy to do a feminist history because there is a big history of that, and there is the idea that when you are doing a feminist history, you are militant and you are not a good researcher and all these things. And my colleagues, my old colleagues, yes, decided to say that they are feminists individually, but they are not doing a feminist history. They decided to do that at the beginning of the 80s. And now I think it's a little different because of the feminist contestation. I am not judging what my colleagues did at the beginning of the 80s. It's not my idea, but there were a few on the academic place, and it wasn't easy for them. But I think that there is a change about this, and I thought that it was a moment to explain what can be a feminist history. I use a lot the work from sociologists because it's more easy to do that when you are a sociologist in France, but I think in other countries too. And I was explaining that I was using through with a feminist standpoint and with for example, theorization from the feminists, and that's why I was using the concept of reproductive work, who come to me as a feminist point of view, but it's not so clear in reality, because in other countries there is a lot of research since 1980s, for example, who was using reproductive work, but not a lot in France area. But for me, it was a concept from the feminists. Another thing important, and I just okay. Now that I have to go. Oui, je sais. Okay. The other thing what is important is to say is my idea of a feminist history is not just to say and to show that there were women in the history, but there is an objective which is to destabilize the present. And when I am talking about this, I am using John Scott, who is a feminist historian from the United States, which is who explains clearly this idea. I can go more away, I think. And just to finish, okay, I did. The aim of the book was to analyze how social movements since 1945 have redefined the division of reproductive work between paid and unpaid dimension under the influence of feminism. It was my problematic in reality. When you are in a contestation to have, for example, a place for the child, you are with a demand to have the child in the place with other people, and to pass from the unpaid work to paid work in the public services, for example. It was the idea of the research with an attention of professional and domestic work all the time. It was the idea to have the continuum between the two dimensions, and I spoke about the two things with the periodization, but I think that I don't have any time to explain that.
Okay. So after all this work by Fanny showing that last 70 years of struggles are not actually 70 years of men's struggle and of men working class, but a much more complex history with a large part of the reproductive workers fighting also. Our idea is to try to use the strong concept of class to try to understand what's at stake, and go further with this idea to see differently the economy and the society than mainly around what is paid and what is men work. And instead of having only or as main view the idea of two main classes, working class and the bourgeoisie or owners of the companies, that are divided and defined together through the wage relation. The idea is to try to see things through the reproductive work mainly, so the society is actually organized around its reproduction, and the part of the work that is not reproductive and that is accumulated by capitalists. So we shift a bit the view, and this leads us to shift a little bit the view on the definition of the classes, and instead of thinking of the working class, mainly the wage working class, we think of the reproductive working class. And this helps us to use one standard classical Marxist discussion about the difference between the class in itself and the class for itself. So this is the standard discussion that, from a sociologist's point of view, you can see that people have different habits, different livings, so they are different groups. but it becomes a politically enhanced class once a class gives itself a party, representation, unions, etc., etc. And Marx participates to the foundation of the First International as a way to organize the working class internationally. And all the story after that of standard Marxism is looking at how the working class organize, take power, have parties, unions, etc., etc. So we try to use this idea, this differentiation between class in itself and class for itself, for the reproductive work instead of the working class. When we try to do that, that's a lot of things Fanny could develop from history of France in the last decades. You see that unions have issues and parties and so on and so forth because they think only of wage work, and so they are not adapted for other kinds of work. But sometimes, and quite often actually, there are other kind of organizations that go from the union, from the party, or on the side of it, and organize reproductive workers in a separate organization or in part within the union, within the party, and so on. Looking at that, we see the society from a bit different perspective, a bit in bias, diagonally, of the lecture, the standard lecture between work and capital. And we can try to see and to understand what happens politically in the mobilizations, in the political history and social history of the countries through these lenses as a new way of thinking of global actors, let's say collective actors like the representative working class, and the way they give themselves a representation. That's the idea. And doing that in the same time, we change a bit the definition of reproductive work. That's what I will try to stress now. Since the original definition, the one by Lise Vogel we presented a few minutes ago, is based on the reproduction of labor force, so for the capital. The idea is that you are only a reproductive worker if you produce people that will work for the capital. And that's the labor power to be sold on the wage job market, in one word if you want, one concept. But if you start organizing reproductive workers as a class not only in itself but for itself, then what you are seeing, thinking, maybe redefining is what do you reproduce? And it's not anymore the fact that in the end some capitalists will be able to employ the labor power produced that counts, but the fact that you reproduce reproductive workers themselves, so that it's a way to see a potential reorganization of society, and it enables to maybe make more sense, or at least see differently, a very classical standard issue that emerged during struggles, during strikes in particular, during feminist strikes in particular, when you want to stop working, when you want to stop reproductive work, it's a bit different than when you stop working, let's say, in a guns factory. You stop producing guns, you don't really care, maybe you're happy that you don't produce so much guns. But when you are working with little child in kindergarten, maybe you can't stop that easily, or when you work in a hospital, people are depending for their life on your work, it's hard to go to strike. And that's because this work, it's not absolutely general, but in many configurations, reproductive work is in the same time reproducing labor force, labor power to be bought by the capitalists, but in the same time producing human beings that we want to try to maintain alive. And so we have this contradiction when we want to stop, not to stop completely. And it makes much more sense with this view of two aspects of the reproductive work. One aspect that is for the capital and one aspect that is not anymore only for the capital. So we can think of what do we stop when we stop? What that it means to have a strike, to be in strike. It's a bit different for reproductive work. It's not stop the production, it's to stop the part of the production that makes labor power, but not necessarily to stop the part of the same work that produce individuals with other characteristics that being employed as professional workers. And that's what Ferguson and other theoreticians of the social reproduction, it's time to stop. It's the last one. Very well organized. She explains that there is no total subsumption by capital of reproductive work, so it's in part outside, in part inside, and that's why we believe really it's a good idea to see things through reproductive work, because it doesn't enter so well within the scope of capitalism. So we are already outside of capitalism in part, but largely subordinated, aligned with the interests of capital, but only largely, not completely. So there are always some outside to stand on to resist during the strikes and other moments. And organizing the feminist strike, for example, is a moment where feminist activists think concretely to, in each sector, each country, each moment, what is to be stopped and what conversely is to be developed. Another example, we could go more in details, is once a struggle, a strike starts and wants to go further than one day, you need to organize life during the strike, and that's also a way to reproduce one kind of specific work, which is strikers' work or activists, as you want. Yeah, maybe that's what we want to stop here. Thank you.